At my brother's engagement dinner, my mom smiled at the bride's family and said, "He never did much with his life, even though I paid for half the event." I didn't correct her at the table or ruin the night. I just let dinner finish. And that night, I made one change they didn't see coming. By morning, they realized something was off. Hey everyone, before we get into today's story, I want to be honest with you, the channel has been struggling lately, and we really need your support. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. It's the one thing that helps us more than anything else. We just want to keep making content you love, and your support is what makes that possible. Thank you so much now. Let's get into it. The bride's father shook my hand at the end of the night and said, "Nice to meet you." I paid for half his dinner. He had no idea. My mother had introduced me as our other son, and moved on so fast that the man probably forgot my name before the valet brought his car. He did not know that every course he ate, every glass of wine he drank, and every white orchid his wife complimented twice was funded by the forgettable son sitting at the wrong end of the table. But I should start from the beginning, 3 weeks before the dinner. My name is Ethan. I am 36 years old. I work as a logistics supervisor for a regional freight company. I am not rich. I am not broke. I am the kind of person who keeps a budget on his phone, checks it every Sunday, and knows the exact balance of his checking account at any given moment without needing to look. I have 2 kids, Lily, who is 6, and Noah, who is 9. Their mother and I split up 4 years ago. It was calm and mutual, and we co-parent well. My kids are my center of gravity. Everything I do is organized around them. My younger brother Kevin is 31. He is getting engaged to a woman named Priya, whose family owns a chain of medical supply companies across 3 states. They are wealthy. Not in the way people say wealthy when they mean comfortable. Wealthy in the way that means the bride's father drove to the engagement dinner in a car that costs more than my annual salary. My mother has been aware of this fact since the first time she met Priya's parents, and it has shaped every decision she has made since. 3 weeks before the dinner, my phone rang at 8:40 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was helping Noah with his math homework. "Ethan, I need to talk to you about Kevin's engagement dinner," my mother said. "No hello, no how are the kids? Just the ask, incoming." "What about it?" "We're doing it at Bellamy's, private dining room. Priya's parents are expecting something nice, and your father and I can't cover the full cost." Bellamy's is a restaurant where the breadbasket probably costs more than my Wednesday night dinner rotation. I already knew where this was heading. "How much are we talking about?" "The total is around $26,000. Your father and I can handle half, but we need you to cover the rest." $13,000. She said it the way someone asks you to pick up milk on the way home. "Mom, that's a lot of money." "I know it is. But Ethan, we cannot embarrass ourselves in front of Priya's family. They're used to a certain standard. If we do this halfway, they'll notice. And Kevin needs this to go right." There it was. Not, "Will you help us? But if you don't, this is your fault." "I'll figure it out," I said. "Thank you, sweetheart. You're always so dependable." Dependable, that was the word she used. Not generous, not appreciated. Dependable. The word you use for a car that starts in cold weather. I hung up and looked at Noah, who was still stuck on question 7. "You okay, Dad?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just some family stuff." He nodded and went back to his worksheet. He was 9. He accepted vague answers the way kids do, with a trust that made my chest tight. That week, I paid. I called Bellamy's directly, put my card on file for half the total, and coordinated with the catering manager on the food and beverage package. I emailed the florist my card number for the arrangement upgrade my mother had requested. I confirmed the wine selection the sommelier had proposed. I did what I always do. I handled the logistics, covered the cost, and disappeared into the background. This is not the first time. I have been funding family events for nearly a decade. My parents' 30th anniversary, $2,200. Kevin's graduation party, $3,000. My father's retirement brunch, $4,000. The holiday dinner when the oven broke and my mother wanted to cater instead, $1,800. I stopped counting the total, somewhere north of $40,000. I have never been thanked at any of these events. I have never been mentioned in any toast. But here is the part you need to know. 2 days before the dinner, I logged into the vendor portal at Bellamy's to confirm the final head count. While I was reviewing the reservation, I noticed something. My name was listed as the secondary cardholder on the venue, the caterer, and the florist. Every vendor had my payment information as the direct funding source. I looked at that screen for a long time. I was not planning anything, not yet. But I noticed the way I always notice things. My name was on the infrastructure. My mother's name was on the guest list. I filed that difference away and closed my laptop. The day before the dinner, my cousin Andrea called me. Andrea is one of the few people in my family who treats me like a full human being and not like a service provider with a family discount. "Hey, heads up," she said. "Your mom has been rehearsing." "Rehearsing what?" "Her introductions. She called my mom yesterday and ran through what she's going to say about everyone when she introduces the family to Priya's parents. Sighing, she's got talking points, Ethan. Like a presentation." "What did she say about me?" Andrea paused. She said she's going to keep it simple, something like, "And this is our older son. He never really found his direction, but he helps out." I sat with that for a moment. She had scripted it. She had rehearsed the exact words she would use to describe me to people she wanted to impress. And the script she wrote for me was, "He helps out." "Thanks for telling me, Andrea." "Ethan, are you okay?" "I'm fine. I just like knowing things in advance." Saturday evening. The engagement dinner. Bellamy's private dining room was exactly the kind of place my mother wanted Priya's parents to see. Dark wood paneling, soft amber lighting, white tablecloths so crisp they looked architectural. 2 long tables arranged parallel in an L shape. Enough seats for 24 guests. Crystal glasses already set at every place. Cloth napkins folded into sharp triangles. A string quartet playing something classical and expensive in the corner. The room smelled like fresh bread and old money. It was the kind of space that made ordinary people feel important and important people feel confirmed. My mother had chosen it for exactly that reason. I arrived at 6:45, 15 minutes early, because I'd coordinated the table set up 2 days ago. The orchid arrangements were in place. 4 of them. $85 each, charged to my Visa. They looked beautiful. The family started arriving in clusters. Priya's parents entered at 7 o'clock, and my mother intercepted them at the door with the precision of a diplomat receiving foreign dignitaries. She was wearing a new dress. Her hair was done. Then her smile was calibrated to project warmth and prosperity simultaneously. My mother met me near the bar and looked me over briefly. "You look fine," she said. "Not good, not handsome. Fine. The way you describe weather that is not going to ruin your plans. Go find your seat." I found my seat. Far end of the second table, between my cousin's girlfriend, who I had met once, and an empty chair. I was as far from Priya's parents as the room allowed. That was not an accident. Andrea had told me about the group chat. My mother's message to my aunt, "Put him at the end. I don't want them asking too many questions about what he does." I sat down and looked at the orchids on the centerpiece. I had paid for them. I had picked the variety. And I was sitting further from them than anyone else in the room. The introductions began after the first round of drinks. My mother stood at the head of the main table with the confidence of a woman directing a production she had spent weeks casting. She placed her hand on my father's shoulder and said, "This is Robert, my husband. 38 years of marriage. He built a career in supply chain management and gave our boys everything they needed to succeed." My father smiled modestly. She moved to Kevin. "And this is our Kevin. Brilliant mind. Incredible work ethic. He's been promoted twice in 2 years at his firm. We always knew he'd do something special." Kevin waved. Priya squeezed his hand. The table murmured approval. She introduced my aunt and uncle warmly. She introduced Kevin's college roommate with a charming anecdote about a road trip they took sophomore year. She introduced my cousin Andrea with genuine affection. Then she got to me. She did not walk toward my end of the table. She did not make eye contact. She gestured vaguely in my direction and said, "And that's Ethan, our other son. He never really did much with his life, but he helps out when we need him." She said it smiling. She said it like it was a warm, honest, affectionate summary of a person she loved. Like it was a fact as harmless as his favorite color is blue. Priya's father glanced in my direction, offered a polite nod, and turned back to the conversation at the center of the table. I had been introduced and dismissed in the same breath. 14 words. Then the room moved on as if I had already left. Kevin was sitting 4 seats away. I looked at him. He looked at me for half a second, then looked down at his menu. He had texted me that morning. Bro, thanks for covering so much of this. Really means a lot. That was 9 hours ago. 9 hours between gratitude in a private text and silence in a public room. The appetizers arrived. I ate my soup and listened to the conversation at the other end of the table. Priya's father was asking my mother about the family, about Kevin's career, about their plans. My mother answered every question with the energy of a woman performing for an audience. She was vivid, specific, and generous with every detail about every person at that table. Except me. Then my father stood up. He raised his glass. He thanked Bellamy's for the setting. He thanked the caterer for the food. He thanked his wife for her extraordinary planning. He thanked Priya's family. He thanked Kevin. He thanked 3 other people by name. Or he did not mention me. $13,000, and my name did not appear in a single sentence of his speech. I set my glass down. I did not react. I had been numb to this for years. You stop noticing the invisibility after a while, until something wakes you up. That something came 15 minutes after the toast. My mother appeared beside me. She did not sit in the empty chair. She crouched slightly, lowering herself to my ear level the way people do when they want a conversation to look intimate rather than transactional. Her hand landed on my forearm. Her perfume was close. "Sweetheart," she said. "Tiny favor." "What is it, Mom?" So the florist bill came in a little higher than expected. Something about the orchid variety we upgraded to. You know how these things go? She waved her other hand like she was brushing away a mosquito. "Okay, it's another $1,800. $1,800. I know. But the flowers really did make the room. Priya's mother actually complimented them twice. Can you just cover it tonight? Put it on the same card. I'll sort it out with your father later, I promise." I looked at her. She was still smiling. The same smile from 15 minutes ago when she told Priya's parents I had never done much with my life. She had dismissed me publicly and was now asking me for more money privately. She did not see the contradiction. In her mind, there was no contradiction. I was not a person. I was a function. "Sure, Mom," I said. "You're such a good son." She squeezed my arm, stood up, straightened her dress, and walked back to the main table where Priya's parents were laughing at something Kevin had said. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor in a rhythm that sounded like a closing transaction. She asked me for another $1,800, 15 minutes, after telling 12 people I was nothing. And something inside me finished a calculation it had been running for years. The answer was simple. It was the simplest answer I had ever arrived at. No more. The rest of the dinner passed. Dessert was served. Champagne was poured. Priya's parents gave a lovely speech about their daughter finding a wonderful family. My mother dabbed her eyes with a napkin at exactly the right moment. The whole production went off without a flaw. At the end of the evening, the guests began leaving. I stood near the exit, hands in my pockets, my jacket heavy with the payment confirmation printout I had folded and placed inside that morning. Priya's father walked over to me. He extended his hand. "Nice to meet you," he said. He was being polite. He genuinely did not know who I was beyond the vague reference my mother had made 4 hours earlier. "Nice to meet you too, sir," I said. He gave me a firm handshake, the kind men give when they are being respectful to someone they assume they will never see again. Then he walked away. I stood there after he left. That handshake was the trigger, not the insult, not the toast, not the 1800. It was a stranger shaking my hand without knowing I paid for his dinner. That was the moment I gave myself permission. I drove home, radio off, highway empty. I was not angry. I was not sad. I was just awake, fully awake for the first time in years. on the numbness that had been protecting me for a decade had been lifted by a handshake from a man who did not know my name at the end of an evening I paid for. I got home at 10:51 p.m. Lily and Noah were at their mother's tonight. I changed out of my suit, hung the jacket with the payment confirmation still in the inside pocket, and sat down at my kitchen table. I opened the vendor portal on my laptop. My login still worked. My name was still on every invoice. The final settlement had not yet processed, which meant the charges were still in authorization status, not yet cleared. I could withdraw before they closed out. The window was narrow. By morning, the charges would finalize and the opportunity would be gone. At 11:14 p.m., I picked up my phone and called Bellamy's. The after-hours manager answered on the third ring. "Good evening. Bellamy's Private Events. How can I help you?" "Hi, my name is Ethan Porter. I'm the secondary card holder on the engagement dinner that was held tonight in your private dining room. Reservation under Sandra and Robert Porter." "Yes, sir. Lovely event tonight. How can I help?" "I'd like to withdraw my payment authorization for my portion of the bill. I'd like the full balance to be invoiced to the primary account holder, Sandra Porter." A pause. "You'd like to remove your card from the file and transfer the remaining charges to the primary?" "That's correct. I can process that. The revised invoice will be sent to the primary account holder by morning. Is there anything else?" "That's all, thank you." I hung up, opened my contacts, called the catering company. Same script, same calm, same clarity. "Good evening, my name is Ethan Porter. I'm the card holder on the food and beverage package for tonight's event at Bellamy's. I'd like to withdraw my payment authorization and have the full balance redirected to the event host, Sandra Porter." "Certainly, sir. We'll process the reversal and reissue the invoice to the primary contact. She should receive it by tomorrow morning." "Thank you." 2 calls. 8 minutes total. I closed my laptop, poured a glass of water, and sat in the quiet of my kitchen. The house was still. My kids' drawings were taped to the refrigerator. A permission slip for Noah's field trip was held up by a magnet shaped like a dinosaur. This was my life. Small, organized, real. Every dollar accounted for. Every person in it somebody who actually knew my name. Then I did one more thing. I opened my phone and typed a text message to Priya's father. I had gotten his number from Kevin's wedding planning group chat weeks ago. "Mr. Chandran, it was a pleasure meeting you tonight. The dinner was a wonderful evening, and I was happy to contribute to making it special for Kevin and Priya. Wishing your family all the best." Short, polite, no complaint, no accusation, just one sentence that contained a word my mother had worked very hard to keep him from hearing. Contribute. I sent it and put my phone on the counter. Then I went to bed. I slept better than I had in months. The next morning started at 6:47 a.m., with my phone vibrating on the nightstand. My mother. I let it ring. I was already awake. I had been awake since 6, making coffee, sitting at the kitchen table, watching the light come through the window. I was not anxious, I was not excited, I was just clear. Unclearer than I had been in years. She called again at 6:52, and again at 7:01. Then a text. "Ethan, call me right now. There is a problem with the restaurant bill." At 7:09, another text. "The caterer just called too. They are saying we owe the full amount. What is happening?" At 7:14, my father called. His name appeared on my screen and sat there for 4 rings before disappearing. Then, Kevin called at 7:22. I watched his name pulse on the screen. I thought about his text from yesterday morning. Really means a lot. I thought about the half-second of eye contact at the dinner when our mother dismissed me and he looked down at his menu. I thought about the space between what people say in private and what they permit in public. I let it ring. A text from Kevin. "Bro, what happened? Mom is panicking. Bellamy's sent her an invoice for the full amount. She is crying." I read it. I did not reply. By 8:30 a.m., I had 14 missed calls. The family group chat had detonated. My mother had sent 9 messages, each one escalating in desperation. "Has anyone talked to Ethan? The venue is saying we owe the full $26,000. This has to be a mistake. Someone please call them. The caterer called your father. They want their balance by Friday." I am going to be sick. Ethan, please respond. My father sent one message. What did you do? 3 words. Not, what happened? Not, is everything okay? What did you do? As if the person who had quietly funded every family event for a decade was obviously the one who had done something wrong. My aunt sent, Ethan, your mother is beside herself. Please call her. This is not like you. Kevin sent, dude, what is going on? Please just tell me. I watched the messages stack up. I read every single one. The accusations, the confusion, the demands, the guilt. Then I typed 5 words. You're welcome for the dinner. I pressed send and watched. 3 dots appeared from my mother's side, then disappeared. Appeared again, disappeared. She was typing and deleting, trying to find a response to 5 words that left no room for argument. No dots appeared from Kevin. None from my father. None from my aunt. The read receipts turned blue, one by one, and the thread went completely silent. 5 words had done what a decade of quiet payments never could. They made the invisible visible, and nobody knew what to say to a man they could finally see. I muted the thread. Nobody replied. Not one person. The message sat there at the bottom of the conversation, read receipts visible from every family member, and not a single response appeared beneath it. 5 words, and the entire group chat went silent. Because there was nothing they could say. They could not argue with a receipt. They could not reframe 5 words that contained no anger, no accusation, and no request. Just a statement of fact dressed as gratitude that nobody had ever offered. I put my phone down and drove to pick up my kids. It was Sunday morning, my custody day. Lily wanted pancakes, Noah wanted eggs. I made both. We ate at the kitchen table while my phone sat face down on the counter. It buzzed 11 times during breakfast. I did not check it once. Who keeps calling you? Noah asked. Nobody important, I said. Can I have more syrup? You can have more syrup. He grinned and reached for the bottle. Lily was drawing on a napkin with a crayon she had brought from her bag. The kitchen was warm. The food was simple. The people at this table knew my name. My phone buzzed again. Lily looked at it. Dad, your phone is really angry today. It'll stop, I said. Is it Grandma? I paused. Probably. She never calls this much, Lily said. Then she went back to her napkin, coloring a sun with yellow and orange stripes. She did not ask why. She did not need to. She was 6. She could feel a change in the weather without needing someone to explain the forecast. For 3 days, my phone was a war zone I had chosen to leave. Voicemails stacked up. Texts arrived in clusters. My mother left 4 voicemails that told the entire story of her collapse in miniature. The first was sharp and commanding, the voice of a woman who still believed she controlled the room. Ethan, you need to fix this immediately. The venue wants $26,000 and your father is on the phone with them right now. This is your responsibility. The second, 6 hours later, was confused. The tone of someone whose commands were not producing results. I don't understand why you're doing this. We had an arrangement. You agreed. You can't just change the terms after the fact. The third, the next morning, was smaller. Ethan, please call me back. The caterer is threatening collections. Your father is furious. I haven't slept. Please. The fourth, that evening, was 11 seconds long. She said my name. Paused. Said it again, but then hung up. That voicemail told me everything I needed to know. She had run out of strategies. The woman who had rehearsed introductions and managed seating charts and choreographed an entire evening to control how people perceived her family could not find the words to say to the son she had erased from the production. Kevin texted me twice. The first, Mom is saying you pulled your payment? Why? The second, 2 days later. I know what she said at the dinner. I should have said something. Can we talk? I read it. I appreciated the honesty. But appreciation and action are different things. He should have said something. He did not. The text was 2 days late and the dinner was already paid for by someone else now. I did not reply. My father never called me directly after that first morning. He handled it the way he handled everything, or by letting my mother absorb the chaos while he stayed quiet and waited for someone else to solve the problem. Some people are villains. Some people are the silence that lets villains operate. My father had built a career out of being the second kind. What none of them knew yet was the text I had sent to Priya's father. I did not hear from Mr. Chandran for 5 days. I assumed the message had been received politely and filed away, the way people file away messages from strangers they met once at a dinner party. Then, on a Thursday evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go. Something told me to answer. Ethan, this is Raj Chandran, Priya's father. Raj, good to hear from you. I'll be direct. Your message last week used a specific word, contribute. I asked Priya about it, and she told me you paid for roughly half of that dinner. Is that true? Yes, sir. $13,000. And your mother introduced you as the son who never did much with his life. She did. There was a long pause. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of a man who has learned to choose words carefully. I started my business in a rented warehouse with one employee and a used delivery van. My wife packed boxes beside me for 3 years before we could afford a second hire. I know the difference between someone who builds and someone who performs. He paused. That dinner was a performance, and it sounds to me like they introduced the wrong son. That sentence landed in a place inside me that had been closed off for a very long time. Thank you, Raj. I mean it. And you should know. Priya noticed how you were treated that night. She watched your mother introduce every person at that table with warmth and then change her tone entirely when she got to you. Priya told me. She noticed. We talked for another minute. Then we said goodnight and hung up. The man my mother had spent $26,000 trying to impress had just called the son she erased and told him he was the one worth knowing. Over the following weeks, the financial reality settled into my parents' life. The venue wanted $26,000. The caterer wanted their balance. The florist wanted the $1,800 I had agreed to cover before the calculation inside me reached its answer. My parents had budgeted for $13,000. They now owed double. My mother spent the first week calling vendors trying to negotiate payment plans, and she was not successful. Vendors do not negotiate with people who cannot explain why their co-payer withdrew. They just send invoices. The venue gave her 30 days. The caterer gave her 14. The florist wanted payment within the week. I heard through Andrea that my parents had to pull money from their savings account to cover the immediate bills. The savings account they had been building for 20 years. The one my mother used to mention at family dinners as their safety net. That safety net was now being used to pay for an engagement dinner that was supposed to make them look wealthy in front of people who actually were. My father called me once more, about 2 weeks after the dinner. It was a Sunday evening. I was folding laundry. Ethan, we need to talk about this bill situation. What about it? You know exactly what. The venue wants the full amount. The caterer wants the full amount. Your mother hasn't slept properly in 2 weeks. That sounds difficult. Don't do that. Don't be cold about this. We had an agreement. You were covering your half. I did cover my half. Then I removed my authorization. You can't just do that. I already did. My name was on the invoices. My card was on the vendor files. I called them and pulled it. Took 8 minutes. Your mother is devastated. She told a room full of people that I never did much with my life, Dad. She said it to Priya's parents while I was sitting 15 feet away in a chair she deliberately placed at the far end of the table so that nobody important would have to interact with me. Then she walked over and asked me for another $1,800. 15 minutes after she said it, or while the orchids I paid for were sitting on the table between us. Silence on the line. I didn't know about the seating, he said. You didn't ask. You never ask. You just stand up, give the toast, and skip the name of the person who paid for the wine you're holding while you thank everyone else in the room. That's not fair. What's not fair is thanking the caterer, the florist, the venue coordinator, and your wife's incredible planning in front of 24 people and not mentioning the son who wrote a $13,000 check so the evening could exist. More silence. I could hear my mother saying something in the background, her voice tight and urgent, but I could not make out the words. My father cleared his throat. What do you want from us, Ethan? Nothing. That's the whole point, Dad. I don't want anything from you anymore. You spent $26,000 to impress a stranger and couldn't spend 10 seconds to introduce your own son like he mattered. He hung up without saying goodbye. I finished folding the laundry. A small basket. Noah's shirts, Lily's socks, my work pants. Simple things. Mine. Kevin called me a few days later. He said he had talked to Mom. He said he was sorry. He said he should have spoken up at the dinner when she introduced me like that. I know, I said. You were right there, you heard it, and you looked at your menu. I let you get erased so my evening could stay comfortable, he said. That's on me? Yeah, it is. Are you coming to the wedding? I don't know yet. He did not push it. We hung up. It was the first honest conversation we had ever had, and the family group chat never recovered. My 5-word message sat at the bottom of the thread. Nobody responded to it. The chat continued above it with logistics about other things, but that message was always there, the last real thing anyone had said. My mother sent me one final text about a month later. It was long. It mentioned family, sacrifice, misunderstanding, stress, love. It covered everything except the one sentence that mattered. She did not say, "I am sorry for what I said about you at the dinner." She could reframe it, soften it, explain it, but she could not name it, because naming it would mean admitting she had planned it. I read the message. I did not reply. 3 months later, on a Saturday afternoon, I was making lunch for Lily and Noah. Grilled cheese and tomato soup. Lily was drawing at the kitchen table. Noah was reading a book about space. My phone was in the other room. I had not checked it in hours. The kitchen smelled like butter and bread. Lily looked up from her drawing. "Dad, do you want to see my picture?" "Always." She held it up. 2 stick figures, one tall and one small, standing next to a house with a yellow door. Next to them, a table with 2 chairs. No extra seats, no long table with orchids and place cards and people positioned by committee. Just 2 chairs. "That's us," she said. "That's us," I said. "I was going to draw Grandma," she said, already coloring again. "But I didn't want to." She had not said, "I ran out of room." She had not said, "I forgot." She said she did not want to. 6 years old. She had already decided who belonged at her table and who did not. I found out later that week that my mother had canceled her spring garden party, the annual one she hosted for the neighborhood women's group. She could not afford the caterer. She had used the same caterer for 9 years. This year, she had to call and say she could not cover the deposit. The woman who spent $26,000 performing for strangers could not afford a party for friends. That was not revenge. That was just the bill arriving. I do not tell this story to embarrass my family. I tell it because somewhere out there, someone just sat through a dinner they paid for and heard someone they love describe them as nothing. And that person is driving home right now, wondering if they are allowed to stop paying for their own invisibility. You are. Thanks for listening.